Good morning and welcome to Apex Online Racing. We're here today for the third round of the fourth season of AOR Oceania here on PS4. My name's Alex, and you might know me as Curly, and I'll be doing the broadcast for you today. Now, last week out we were in Bahrain, and unfortunately I was unable to cover that race. So I will give you a rundown of the results and what happened there. And just a quick update on the championship standings, as well, as we're just getting underway with qualifying here in Shanghai. But yeah, so Amazing Hour with another victory, so that's 2 in a row for him this season, leads the championship, leads the way, 50 points, of course, after his 2 wins. Darren then in second place in both the championship and in Bahrain, so 2 podiums to kick things off for him. And then third place in Bahrain was Plevs, who had a pretty rough race in Australia. It was certainly a comeback drive for him there. Came from a long way back due to a desync first lap incident. Completely knocked off his whole front wing and managed to make his way back into the points there. So yeah, better result for him in Bahrain. However, because of that poor result in Australia, he is down in 5th in the championship. So the 2 men between those guys in the championship, we've got Pete Crichton in the Mercedes in 3rd place, and Contrast in 4th. So yeah, Amazing Hour with a pretty big lead at the moment, 17 points after 2 rounds. It's been a very strong start for him, but after that it's quite close. And then in 6th place, well, 6th through 10th, we've got Dynamite, LJB, Harry Tomato, Crossy, and Banana Josh, although 3 of those not making it to the Bahrain race, actually. So it gave an opportunity for a couple more drivers to pick up some points, but we're here in Shanghai, plenty of opportunities for a good result here. This is always a track that brings up some surprises. Got good tyre options here in terms of the strategy. It's always one that's produced brilliant strategies in terms of the tyre compounds, but as well it's good for overtaking. And there's always a slight chance of some rain here, and that can of course play a pretty big role in races. But yeah, with the tyres we've got this week, it's the ultra soft compound that we can see Jack on at the moment, as well as the softs and the mediums. So we do have that compound gap from the softest to the middle tyre, and what that means is, you know, this ultra soft tyre really is a qualifying tyre, and that's pretty much it. You can one stop in the race if you're good on your tyres from ultra softs to mediums, but it's very tight on tyre wear. It's kind of rough on tyre temperatures even after the patch. It's not ideal, and you know, compared to the soft medium strategy, which is what I'm assuming the majority of drivers will lean towards, yeah, you really are hurting in terms of both tyre wear and just overall race pace compared to that. But if you do qualify on the ultra soft tyres and go for that one stop strategy, it does give you a much cleaner run, and you know, that's critical in this game. There's so much slipstream, so much battling. Although, hold on a moment, was that just a little bit of rain that I saw on my screen? Not sure yet, but Jack does cross the line and puts himself up on provisional pole right now. I'll get an idea of what laps everybody has done their best lap on so far. So he's the only one out there on the ultra softs that's done a lap, and everybody else kind of, you know, either heading out there for a couple of warm-up laps on the medium compound of tyres. We've got 1 or 2 guys out there on the soft. Plevs has gone on the soft, LGB as well. That leads me to believe that they might lean towards going ultra softs at the end of the session. You would assume if they're planning on qualifying on the soft compound tyres that they would maybe be on the mediums at this stage, but who knows. If we did see a little bit of rain there, it still looks kind of dry. Let's hop on board. Oh, it is actually snow. It's slightly raining, very lightly. So this pair that have gone out early on, Plevs and LJB on the soft compound tyres, I think have pulled an absolute blinder here, because they've got the best conditions possibly of the track. Now it's not raining very hard at all, and you know, possibly might dry up later on, but the clouds are certainly will be pretty menacing down the back straight here. And you know, the moment that rain starts to come down, it is costing you time all the way around the circuit. Shanghai, a track with such long corners, so many long corners, that yeah, it gets very tricky in damp conditions. But yeah, Plevs has got himself in a great spot then on the soft compound tyres, and that might be why those 2 guys went out early in the session. Let's have a look at LJB, and he is just bringing his car into the pits as well. So a bit of a disappointing time, I'd have to say, from LJB. He's only sat in 5th. He's behind a couple of the guys on the medium tyres, namely the Mercedes boys of Darren and Pete, who've been very strong in qualifying so far this season. Now, they've been pretty strong in the races as well, picking up 3 podiums out of a possible 4 so far, and then that extra result was a 4th place for Pete last time out in Bahrain. So certainly the team to beat at the moment is Mercedes. But yeah, you know, I also want to just mention currently we've got Jack on provisional pole, and this is his first race in AOR. It's his debut race, so I think that he'll be feeling quite a lot of pressure at the moment on that. If he does end up on pole position by the end of this session, and the way it's looking right now, the number of people out there on the mediums or on the softs, and with this rain coming down, it's still not heavy, certainly still slick conditions, but that will just be costing all of the drivers time all the way through their laps. So he's got a decent chance of actually grabbing full pole in his first ever race here in AOR. That'd be a pretty special one for him. But also noting it's currently a Renault 1-2. But we're on board with Contrast now, who's he's always one of those guys that's just outside of the real sort of kind of front-running group generally. He's spent so many seasons in this league, around about 4th or 5th in terms of raw pace. So we'll see if he's able to step it up today. He does bring it into the pits though, currently sitting in 6th place. And if we do get a dry race, then for these guys, that I'm assuming it's a dry race considering how many people are out there on mediums or softs, but considering if it were going to rain in the race, they'd likely all be out there on the ultra softs. But yeah, for Contrast, I mean, for all those guys starting on the mediums or the softs, way up the order, that's looking pretty good for them. And of course, for those guys a little bit further down, they'll be hoping to get themselves much further up. No real, there's not a huge advantage to being outside of the top 10 when pretty much everybody is on one of the ideal strategies anyway. If the whole top 10 was on ultra softs, if you're P11, that might almost be pole position at this circuit. But when you've only got one driver up there on the ultra softs, these guys starting outside the top 10 really do need to get themselves as far up as feasibly possible. Can't rely on the strategy carrying you through in the race, because there's so many people on the same strategy ahead of you. Crossy in the Williams here, and he's making his way towards the end of the lap, down the hairpin, braking just before the 100-meter board, and those braking zones do get a little bit longer as this track does get damper and damper as the session continues on. And I'm curious if we will actually see many improvements from drivers at all. It's not raining too hard. What's Crossy able to do? He goes 10th place. It's a 33.3, but these times are kind of way off what people are expecting from practice, simply because of this rain coming down. So yeah, it's hard for these guys to actually make any kind of meaningful improvement. Go on board with Piggott, who's making his way to the end of a lap on the soft compound tyres, and he only goes up to 9th. So yeah, I mean, these guys quite a long way. Look at that, he's 1.5 seconds off of pole position at the moment, and 1.2 seconds off of Plebs, is on the same tyres as him. So yeah, this rain making a pretty big impact. I'll also note for the guys further down, Pure Gold downwards are not here this week. So Pure Gold, Crema, Smoke, Infinite March, and Daisiac are not in this race. They're simply showing on the timing boards because the lobby was set up as a championship rather than just a singular race. That's why those names are there without them being on the circuit today. But yeah, it is Jack on pole currently, just 7 minutes remaining, and this rain has really thrown a spatter in the works of the strategies. Pete is out here on the soft compound tyres. He's trying to improve, but will he actually be able to improve on his medium compound time considering the condition of the track? And again, starting P4 on the medium tyres is not a bad place to be at all. If you're able to stay in the slipstream of the soft runner ahead and just plebs, then yeah, you're in an extremely good spot on the end of the race. We've seen that so much on this game, that drivers going for that alternate strategy and trying to be quick towards the very end of the races has worked out incredibly well. Certainly seen that in European F1 tier a lot over the last season and a half. But yeah, Pete making his way towards the final couple of corners now. Once again, trying to find this braking point. Does brake a little bit later there, but still before 100 meters. And desperately trying to get on the traction. A lot of wheel spin coming out of there and around the final corner. So easy to invalidate a lap here by running wide. He doesn't do it though. He stays as tight to the line as he possibly can. Pete does improve but it's not enough to overhaul Plebs. It's only gains him 1 position. His teammate Darren has just gone out there as well, so yeah, that's nowhere near as big of an improvement as he would have hoped for. And once again, this rain, to be honest, I'm surprised he even managed to improve at all. Maybe for Darren, maybe even better for him. He's going to work in the wheel, desperately trying to get heat in the tires. But I mean, maybe for him it'd be better just to sit there on the mediums. I don't know if anybody behind him is going to be able to improve, because you can see they're all out on the softs now, but his contrast getting a big chunk of oversteer once he dips down into first gear through the hairpin. But whether these guys are going to be able to improve meaningfully, he might actually be able to hold on to that 4th position. Let's see if Contrast has anything to say about it. Oh, he does go 4th, so he's able to improve there, but his time's still way off what people were doing in practice. So Darren is, well, he is under threat from a number of the guys behind. Who else have we got coming towards the end of the lap? Dynamite, very sideways. That's completely throwing away his lap, I think. Currently sitting in 10th position, but well, I tell you, not even sure I want to start on those tires now. He's gone completely sideways and around about 5th gear around that corner, and that's going to absolutely destroy the rear tires. Runs deep into the hairpin as well, as Piga almost collecting him, and he does, abandoning the lap. He's not able to improve due to that mistake. So yeah, Dynamite making his way into the pits. Also, we got on the lap Zeffy on a lap in the Red Bull, making his way into the 3rd sector now. A lock up on the front left there, and that's compromised his line coming through the snail section, and that just makes it awkward coming out of this long right. Got a lot of understeer on that car as well. It looks like really struggling to get the nose into the corner there. A little bit too late on the brakes as well, going into the hairpin, just struggling to find the marker in these damp conditions. And no, he bails out of it. He pulls into the pits, not able to make any kind of improvement. Yeah, this rain really throwing a spanner in the works for pretty much all of the drivers. Hop on board with Banana Josh and the McLaren, doing a huge amount of short shifting there. I'm not quite sure if that's a driving style thing or if that's him just maybe taking a little bit easier on this lap. Does say he's up in overtake mode, but yeah, I think he's possibly just on a cooldown lap here now. Currently sitting in 8th place, not a bad place to start at all for Banana Josh. Now, if we go and look at the best lap times, yeah, so he's done his best lap so far on the medium compound of tires. So it's the 2nd highest medium runner actually for Banana Josh. That's a really good position for him to be in, as he takes a whole heap of curbs through the snow section. But yeah, I mean, it's the 2nd highest medium runner. Very good spot for the McLaren. Certainly been a driver that's improved massively since the last time that we saw him. I think that was back in season 1 mostly. Didn't have a great race in Australia, but did manage to pick up some points in Bahrain, finished 8th there. Currently sitting 10th in the championship. We've got to say he's picked up a lot of pace over the last year or two, so that's great to see. We'll see if Banana Josh is able to make an improvement as he does come around the final corner. Almost runs wide, right up to the white line, but just about hangs on. He doesn't improve though. He's quite a long way off improving, actually 6/10, so he'll probably, no, he's backed out of it. So yeah, Banana Josh likely going to have to take that medium compound lap time as his best. Plebs is actually headed out on the medium tires. That's interesting. He'll improve on his previous lap time on the mediums now. Interesting strategy all the same. As we got Crossy making his way across the line to start his flying lap. Currently sitting in 12th place. His previous best was on the medium compound tires, but once again this track just looks like it's getting more and more difficult. It's, you know, it's not too wet, but it's just wet enough that it's completely throwing off the drivers, I think, and just making the car so much more difficult. And of course in qualifying as well, in these kind of conditions, it's certainly nowhere near intermediates yet, but the drivers, they have to push so hard, use the high engine modes, and in particular, the traction zones can be incredibly difficult in these sorts of conditions. During the race, it's a little bit easier. You don't have to push so hard, and you can use the lower engine modes, really. It's generally the sensible thing to do, get the engine down in lean and use that for the traction in the wet. But during qualifying, you generally don't want to cost yourself any potential lap time by lowering the engine mode, so it can be very, very difficult to drive in these kinds of conditions, as Crossy runs quite deep, and that's going to compromise his line all the way around this right-hander. Struggling to get the power down, he just about does it. This is now coming along the back straight, and I think he's backed out. Yeah, he has backed out of it. Realizing that he's not going to improve either. The track is just too wet for the drivers to make any kind of meaningful jump forward. Got Jack out there on the soft compound tires, but I feel like his lap he did on the Ultras is, well, I think that's going to stand as the pole position time set right at the opening part of the session. And wow, he's somehow found himself on pole position here in China. Probably a bit unexpected in his first race, but there we go. I'm sure that he'll be feeling the nerves coming towards the end of this qualifying session, and certainly by the start of the race. I think everybody remembers the nerves of their first race in AOR, never mind the first time starting on pole. For that to be the same race, it's going to be a little bit nerve-wracking, but we'll see how he hangs on with it. Contrast is completely backed out of his runs. Banana Josh is continuing on his laps, but I don't think that we're going to see an improvement here. The track is simply too wet now. And yeah, it really was down to who was able to get those laps in early on in the session. And he's really struggling for traction there as well. We'll round the final corner. Once again, right up to the white line. Does he actually make an improvement? No, he doesn't. He's nowhere near at 1.8 seconds off. And yeah, that's basically the session done. Everybody has completed their laps, and wow, what a... Oh, actually, Elton's still out there on the soft compound tire, sorry. I saw the checkered flags and figured we were done, but not quite. One more car still to go. Elton, who's currently sitting on a 1:39, so he's not hooked up a really sort of representative lap time yet. Has a big lock-up as well, as this track gets more and more difficult. The braking zone's causing a huge amount of trouble for the drivers. Nearly loses it out of the hairpin too, and he's had enough. He's pulling into the pits and clearly realised that this track is, well, it's just not possible to make that improvement. I think the only person we really saw improve after the first laps was Pete Crichton, and he only improved by about a tenth or two on a softer compounded tires, and that was a long time ago. So yeah, that's the that's a very interesting qualifying session. I mean, not much of the drivers able to show raw pace. It really just came down to who is out there getting the laps in those first couple of minutes, and those that have done that have certainly prospered, especially the Renaults, who've ended up 1-2 on the grid. So there we have it, the qualifying order and the grid position for the race. Jack on pole on debut on the ultra soft tires, got the lap in early, and well, that was well worth it for him. Plebs in second, Pete third, Amazing Hour fourth with Contrast behind him, and Darren alongside Contrast. Then we got LJB, Banana Josh, Piga and Harry Tomato making up the rest of the top 10, followed by Dynamite, Crossy, Zephy, Azatak and Elton filling out the grid. Very difficult qualifying session for the drivers. Such just awkward conditions for them to race in, and that light rain coming down and just hanging there through the session really made it almost a one lap qualifying right off of the very start. I think that rain caught out a huge number of the drivers. As the drivers will be getting their cars all set up for the race, making any last-moment changes that they need to do before the race runs. Of course, there's a couple things that you can change on the cars: your front wing angle, your brake bias, differentials, that kind of thing. You often want to run quite a high differential in the wet. Actually, on this game, typically feels better, but you know, on a long sort of race stint, a lower diff can give you a little bit better tire wear. It is, of course, just the on-throttle diff that you can change, but yeah, a couple little changes that the drivers are able to make as they pull away and start the formation lap here in Shanghai, and it is the two Renaults leading them away. And man, I've got to say, Jack's going to be feeling a few nerves right now in that Renault on pole, on debut. That's going to be something. But yeah, let's have a look at the tire compounds that everybody has ended up on. Of course, those who qualified inside of the top 10 do have to start on the tires they set their qualifying lap on. So we do have, well, it's a sea of yellow, really. Only 3 drivers starting the race on the medium compound tires: Darren, Banana Josh, and Elton. And then, of course, Jack is the only one out there on the Ultra Softs. So yeah, kind of the lone man on an alternate strategy. Now, whether he will try the Ultra Soft medium 1-stop, or perhaps we'll just 2-stop. I mean, you can go ultra soft, 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 and you know, you'll have plenty of tires to push on through the race. Not too bad of a strategy, but not quite as quick as the soft medium 1-stop. So you do need to be pretty fast to make up that lost time. However, if there's quite a lot of battling in that 1-stopping train, then yeah, you can make up a lot of ground on those guys if they start to squabble. But if he is going to try the 1-stop, he needs to get these ultra soft tires to at least lap 5. Realistically, lap 6 is probably better, just to give himself enough life on the mediums. 1, to make it to the end of the race, but 2, to have anything left really to fight with when those guys doing the soft mediums catch up towards the end of the race, which is pretty much inevitable. You know, it gives them a huge advantage in tire life, and around Shanghai that really does make a big difference in terms of lap time. As we line up on the grid for the 3rd round of the season. It's the 4th season of AOR Oceania here on PS4. Now we have a Renault 1-2 in Shanghai. Jack on debut, on pole position. A strange qualifying session, and you'll be feeling the nerves as the lights build up for this race. And here we go. Jack on your right, it is Plevs on your left. See if Jack's able to hold on to the lead into turn 1, and it's lights out and away we go in Shanghai. A lot of wheel spin, and who is that in the Sauber? It's Amazing Hour with an absolutely storming start from 4th position all the way up to 2nd and possibly 1st by the end of turn 1. He gets the nose of the Sauber ahead, but they are going to go side by side into turn 2, not quite. And actually, Jack has to take a little bit of evasive action there across the curbing, and Amazing Hour with an amazing start has gone from 4th to 1st. In the first couple of corners, he's going to have to defend hard from the Renault here, though, with a pretty good tire advantage, as there's contact with the Mercedes behind as well, with Pete Crichton running into the back of Jack, but he's not able to get any kind of move done there, and Jack is down to 2nd place. And what a start from Amazing Hour. Caught everybody off guard out of the blocks. Had an absolutely rapid launch, as Pete's having a go at Jack into the double left almost. There's not much of a chance of an overtake there, but yeah, Amazing Hour with an amazing start, and from 4th to up to 1st place, and he just got such an incredible launch off the line. I'm almost surprised he didn't jump at the start, as how good his run was off of the grid. And now we're on board with Pete Crichton in the Mercedes, who's well aware that he cannot allow Amazing Hour to get away, and he feels like this Renault is holding him up somewhat. Amazing Hour is all over the track in front of them. He's pretty close. He's actually going to go for a huge dive bomb into the hairpin, and he gives Jack a bit of a squeeze, and that's a bit of a welcome to the league right there. Very aggressive move from Pete. He just about makes it stick, and he is up into 2nd place. We'll see if Jack is able to get him back coming along the the pit straight, really. I guess it is the main straight as well, but he's not able to get close enough there. and running a little bit deep. Contrast behind as well, needs to be careful he doesn't lose his front wing on the Renault cutting back across, which is always going to happen in that corner. It's quite easy to misjudge it with the car in front, as Jack runs quite wide though out of the exit of turn 4, and he's not even going to defend into turn 6. Contrast takes the opportunity up the inside, a little bit of wheel banging between the two of them, and Jack is up on the curbs. So it's it's pole to 4th and possibly 5th here, as he's got a Mercedes attempting to go around his outside. It's Darren on the medium compounded tires. He will now have the inside as well for the next corner, as they're still side by side. A little bit of contact, but no. It's actually been contact. Yeah, there's a lot of contact there, and Jack has lost the car. He has a half spin, just about collects it, but it's a disaster start for him. Qualifying was a dream, but he's gone from 1st to 12th in the space of a lap and a half here in Shanghai. Just a little nudge there unsettled the car. He sends him sliding off, and might see something about that in the stewards. I'm not quite sure. Dynamite as well, looking very, very close to Darren, who's on the medium compound, remember, so he's going to be struggling compared to some of these guys, as Dynamite is trying to hang it all the way around the outside of the hairpin. Not quite able to get it done. Needs to be careful of Plevs behind as well. He's had a shocker of a start, from 2nd on the grid down to 6th for Plevs. See there, losing 4 positions, whereas Dynamite's had an absolute stormer, up 6 positions. So he's done very, very well for himself. Of course, starting outside of the top 10, he's got fresh softs on. He's the highest runner with fresh softs by a mile. The next person with fresh tires is Crossy in 10th. So Dynamite looking in a really good position here, because the fresh tires, they do give you a pretty handy advantage in the race. He's sitting in 5th place right now. He'll be very happy with that. Further up, Amazing Hour has got himself out of any kind of DRS range. Obviously the battling behind, costing them a chance of getting within the DRS. See if Pete's able to reel him in. He does look a little bit quicker through the middle sector at least, but of course dependent on setup. There's big changes around this circuit. I mean, the long corners of the middle sector really do favour high downforce, but then of course you have this massive straight coming up that favours taking as much wing off of the car as you possibly dare. It really is a track where you've got to balance straight line speed with being able to actually make it through the middle sector. But yeah, it does look like Amazing Hour is pulling away quite a lot along that straight, so perhaps he's running a pretty low drag setup compared to Pete. Of course, that can also have a pretty big effect on the tire life, possibly. Running low drag can hurt you in terms of your tire life, but we'll see how that develops over this stint. Contrast up in 3rd at the moment, hanging on to the back of Pete Crichton as well, so he's in a very nice spot here. DRS will be available, was I think available on the last lap as well, and it really does make a huge difference at this circuit. DRS is so powerful down that back straight that just sticking with the car in front of you within his DRS is critically important for these drivers. That'll be Darren's main concern at the moment on the medium tires. Desperately try and stay within the DRS of those soft runners in front. If he's able to stay with them for a couple of laps, it should get much easier as the stint goes on and those mediums come into their own. Dynamite getting pretty close to him, where he has to go a whole heap of understeer in the dirty air off of that Mercedes through the middle sector. And we'll see if Dynamite's able to get himself close enough to possibly make a move on Darren. You've got to be careful in these kind of conditions. Even though the car in front of you is on the mediums, you need to be aware that if you do battle too hard, if you're not able to get the move done cleanly on the first go round, as the tail is just kicking out a little bit around the long right, if you're not able to get the move done cleanly on the first try, then you can actually knock both of you out of DRS, and at that point you're in a massive uphill battle to get it back. But is Dynamite going to go for a dive? You bet he is. He's a little bit too late on the brakes, makes contact with Darren as they're now going to go side by side into the final corner, and look at that, the gap is just above 1 second. So as Darren runs extremely wide, and this might open up some sort of opportunity for Plebs, possibly. No, I think it's going to be too far back, but he can watch side by side Dynamite and Darren into the first corner, and Darren very, very late runs wide to the first part, but he's able to cut back, and there we go, just about get the nose in front. Still more wheel banging These two are not afraid to make a little bit of contact with each other as Darren squeezes Dynamite and manages to hold on to the position, but he has lost DRS to the cars in front, and that's going to make him all the more vulnerable on the next lap. And look at this, Pete Crichton as well is pretty close to Contrast there. So he'll need to be careful of that. Contrast will need to get defensive. Oh, sorry, Contrast was passing Pete Crichton. My bad. Yeah, Contrast has actually passed Pete Crichton, so he's up into second now. Was in third on the previous lap. So, yeah, Contrast, the one really sort of making the moves in this train at the moment. And Darren has managed, with that battling in front of him, to just get himself back within that DRS range. We'll see if he's just about there at the detection point. It's critically important for him to be. And has he got the DRS crossing the DRS detection point? Yes, he does, and that's going to help him stay with the cars in front. And well, look at Dynamite straight line speed. He's just pulling away from Plebs, who was pretty close to him at the start of the straight. Runs both of them running very, very deep. As we got Banana Josh making a move on Harry Tomato a little further back, and Banana Josh now up to 7th place on the medium compound tires. He's in a really good spot in this race. Look at, well, watch out for him. He's got a bit of work to do if he wants to catch up to the leading pack, but as Pete is making his way, possibly a move on Contrast, no, he's not quite close enough. These guys getting very close to each other coming into the first corner. As Zeffy has retired from the race, he's out, so I'm not quite sure what happened there. May have crashed out of it, but yeah, Pete all over the back of Contrast for second place here, and these guys have got to be careful that they don't battle too much. But I mean, I say that, Amazing Hour is storming away up front, 4.5 seconds now already on lap 6. He had an incredible start up from yeah, it was up from 4th place on the grid, and well, he's just stormed away. So yeah, Amazing Hour looking like he's got plenty of pace in this circuit. It's going to take something mighty for these guys to catch him, or for him to completely destroy his soft tires. It's a pretty simple one stop in terms of actually making the tires last to the end if you are doing soft medium. However, you know, the tire wear is important. If you use too much of them early on in the stint, you will suffer towards the end of the stints. Contrast going very, very defensive from Pete Crichton, clearly worried about the Mercedes going for a move, but he's not quite close enough on this occasion. And yeah, this has allowed Darren to catch right up to them, and at this stage in the stint, the mediums are going to start to come into their own and should be pretty similarly paced to the soft. So I think Darren's in a very good spot here as well for a potential podium. Yeah, this 2nd through 6th group, Amazing Hour is just gone at the moment. 5 seconds out in front, but this group behind very, very close together. And then we got a bit of a gap down to Harry Tomato, and then Banana Josh and Pigga going side by side. Banana Josh was the man on the move earlier on in this stint, but he's lost a position to Harry Tomato. I think he's going to lose a position possibly to Pigga here as well, as he runs very wide out on the curbs, but just about hangs on to it, and does maintain that 8th place. But that battling may have just cost them the slipstream to Harry Tomato, so they're going to be going to try and work together a little bit, really. It's one of those things, especially the first stint of the races on this game, you can't afford to battle too hard and lose the DRS train in front of you, as Banana Josh has a massive wiggle. Yeah, almost spearing the car off into the wall, as LGB has left the session after crashing out as well. Yeah, Pete Crichton very, very close to Contrast. Surely this is going to be a simple move for him. Contrast defending hard, so I'm not quite sure what on earth the camera angles are doing for us. We'll see if we can find a better one. There we go. As Contrast defends the inside very, very hard, and he's decided he's not remotely interested in working with the cars around him. I think he's realised that Amazing Hour is just gone 5.5 seconds up the road. Look at him, he's way down at the end of the straight, and yeah, he's stormed away already. Contrast perhaps thinking that he's in a fight just for P2 at this stage, starting to look like it, but he's defending very, very hard. And of course, you know, as you get closer to that pit stop window, track position becomes ever more important, because you certainly want to be the leading car going into the pit lane. You got a better chance of coming out of the pits ahead, and if you are able to come out of the pits ahead, it's almost like a free second or a second and a half on the car behind. you know, is there stuck at pit lane speed for an extra second or two for, you know, their car to cross the line after yours. You can get a huge amount of time. But yeah, Pete still all over the back of Contrast. Clearly looks a little bit quicker at the moment, but you know, this is one of those circuits. It's a bit like Bahrain, where it can be a little bit tricky to tell who is actually the quicker driver in terms of raw pace when one is, you know, tucked up behind the other in the slipstream, because the slipstream is so powerful here. It's very hard to pull away unless the cars behind start battling, or unless you're Amazing AOR and just have, well, whole heaps of pace. As look at that, Pete really struggling with understeer, and now he's got his teammate all over the back of him. So I wonder what Mercedes are going to do here. And is this team orders coming through? It is. So Pete has allowed his teammate through, who is on the harder compound of tyres, but clearly thinking that these mediums are better on lap 8 at this stage of the race to attack that Ferrari of Contrast up ahead of them. And yeah, Darren now up onto the podium positions on the medium compound tyres in a really good spot, as Plebs has made his way back up to 5th, finally clearing Dynamite. But he's just lost the slipstream train to the guys ahead, so we'll see if he's able to catch back up to them in the final couple laps of this stint. And you know, the pit window really is open anytime now. We have already had one man in the pits, that was Jack. We started on the ultra soft tyres. He actually went an incredibly long way on those tyres, looking at it. But yeah, did he make it, what, like 7 laps? That's incredible. But yeah, you know, these guys can come into the pits pretty much any time. You do need to be somewhat careful of the undercut here. If they pit 1 lap before you, it's not too much of an issue. But if somebody pits 2-3 laps before the rest of the train, they can get a pretty big undercut on the medium compound tires. And you know, of course, having fresher mediums, it is worth quite a lot. And you know, the track where overtaking is relatively easy. You know, being fast towards the end of the race does have a lot of benefits. However, you know, if you're towards the back of the train, you can often jump multiple people if you pit a couple laps early and just get that undercut on. But further up the train though, Darren on the medium compound tyres is absolutely flying at this stage of the stint. Contrast defending the inside, locks up pretty badly, but he's able to hang on. He gets pretty good traction despite Darren having a wider line, and he gets a much better line through the final corner though. And once again in the DRS with the slipstream, but he's not quite close enough to make a move into turn 1. Gains so much on the braking there. He's just got so much more tyres left. Takes a really tight line though. Not able to really get close to Contrast. Actually gets caught up on the curb a little bit. Just dipping down to first gear to get the nose into the corner, and then desperately trying to find the traction on exit, stay as close to that Ferrari as possible, as we have had Pete in the pit lane. So he's going for the undercut here, and Mercedes obviously making the most out of this split strategy. You know, Pete deploying the undercut on Contrast, and Contrast will really need to react to that, but of course that'll free up Darren to you know, go chasing off after Amazing AOR and to run these tires for as long as he possibly wants. And you know, Contrast as well, you know, pitting earlier, need to have a little bit less life towards the end of the race to defend from Darren. He'll surely be catching back up to them by the end of the race on the soft compound tires. But yeah, all over the back of Contrast now, and for Pete, he really needs this pair to battle and hold each other up if he wants to pass Contrast on the undercut. He's got a huge amount of work to do. But here we go, Darren down the inside, and Contrast not really fighting this one. I think he realizes that it's somewhat inevitable. Doesn't want to lose too much time battling, although saying that he's gone for a bit of a cutback. We'll see if he comes into the pits here. And is Contrast going to go for the pit lane? He does. So he is reacting to the Mercedes as Dynamite pits as well. Plebs has stayed out. Here Tomato has stayed out as well. Stayed out as well. So yeah, a few of the guys in the pit lane, and now our attention needs to go to Pete Crichton. Where is he on the track? Making his way to the final corner, and Contrast coming towards the end of the pit lane here. So this is going to be pretty close, I think, between the pair of them. No, actually, I think Contrast is going to have the jump, certainly. Yeah, there he goes. Look at that. He's actually gained time, and obviously Pete having colder tires on that lap, and he's come out side by side. Oh dear, that's very messy. And Dynamite is spun, well, half spun at least. He does just about pick his Sauber back up and carry on, but that's cost him a lot of time. But yeah, I mean, you know, Pete obviously having the cold mediums on that lap costing him quite a lot to contrast. You know, pitting that one lap after was critical for his race, and he now has some clean air and he's got a pretty decent gap. I mean, Pete will gain on him for the next lap or two due to just having warmer tyres. It takes a little bit of time to get these mediums up to temperature, but so long as he doesn't get it back within the DRS range, which, you know, it is possible considering the temperature difference in the tyres. But if he is able to stay out of the DRS range of Pete Crichton, then he'll be in a very, very good spot with a little bit fresher tyres. And now his concern has got to be, well, it's got to be Plebs and it's got to be Darren. Plebs obviously still out there on the soft compounded tyres, making his way into the pits now at the end of lap 11 for him. Amazing AOR has come in too, so Darren is in the lead of the race on his mediums. But we'll see where Plebs is going to come out compared to some of the other guys. He was going through Banana Josh on his mediums. Amazing AOR makes his way to the end of the pit lane. Long way out in front for him. And is he going to come out into clean air? Yeah, he comes out in a ton of clean air. Alright, Plebs, where is he going to slot into this battle? He's behind contrast. He's actually side by side with Pete Crichton, who really needs to get this move done as soon as he possibly can. Of course, he's got warm mediums, whereas Plebs has just come out of the pit. So there's contact between the two of them, a lot of wheel banging actually, and Pete has somewhat been shoved off of the circuit there. I think Plebs kind of overestimated the amount of grip he had on the tyres. Not quite realise how cold they are, and look at that dive from Pete Crichton, and that is the move of someone who's just been kind of pushed off, and he's just sort of pushed Plebs back off of the circuit there. And yeah, it's well, I can't say I'm surprised at that, put it that way, but yeah, Plebs with very, very cold mediums, and you can see he's just understeering all over the place in this middle sector. Look at that, really struggling to get the front end of the car in. There's very, very little grip for him, and it does take a bit of time. He's already dropped out the DRS to Pete in front, who's lost a huge amount of time to contrast ahead. Look at that, 4 seconds. So a little bit behind these guys, we've got Dynamite, and then look at this, Harry Tomato has gained a massive amount of time on some of the front runners here, and the way that pit stop window is worked out. There we go, Dynamite on Plebs, gonna have to do it around the outside. So they're side by side into the braking zone. He's looking for a bit of a switch back here on the Renault driver, and he gets a brilliant exit. Still got a bit warmer tires compared to Plebs, and he hangs it around the outside. Where on earth is he gone? That's well, certainly not the track, or at least the bit that we paid for. But yeah, Dynamite not able to get the move done, and then doesn't get the DRS for the pit straight, and has to slot in behind the Renault driver. So I think just completely missed his braking point or his line or something into that final corner, and ended up way off the track, almost out there in the gravel, and that's a long way away. But yeah, Plebs hangs on to P6 for now. A net P4 at the moment, you'd have to say, although with Darren still out there. Let's get a look at the gap to leader. So I mean, Darren, Contrast is 23 seconds behind him. Darren's got a pretty decent shot at actually coming out of the pits ahead of Contrast, possibly. I think he'll certainly come out ahead of his teammate. But yeah, I mean, he's in a really good position here. He needs to go a couple more laps on those medium tyres. You really want to get them to at least lap 15, probably lap 16, to then really be able to push on the softs towards the end of the race. But you know, he's in a really good position, considering the tyre advantage he's going to have towards the end of the race. I don't know if he'll be able to catch Amazing AOR by the end of it. It's going to be a pretty big gap by the time that he pits, but who knows. So soft tyres are generally very quick at the end of the race, as this little trio are currently battling for the positions just outside of the podium. Only a couple seconds behind Pete Crichton as well, so good points on offer for these guys. Plebs, Dynamite and Harry Tomato as well. He's having an absolute stormer of a race. Normally he's someone who's, you know, down towards the back of the top 10 or maybe just outside it, but currently running 8th. Will likely jump Banana Josh as well once Banana Josh makes his pit stop, so he's going to be very happy with a 7th place at least. And with the way that some of the guys up ahead are battling, then there's a possibility, I think, for quite a lot more. Just need to do his best to try and hang on to the likes of Plevs and Dynamite. You do have some pretty good pace here. Plevs just 2 seconds behind Pete Crichton, and look at this up ahead. Contrast is actually pulling away from Pete. A couple tenths a lap, but it is there. So yeah, Contrast with some very good pace, and he of course will now only really be thinking of Darren and where on earth is he going to come out. Contrast is gaining time on him. He's gained about a second on this lap alone compared to Darren, but Darren's going to have much better tyres at the end of the race, so Contrast needs to build himself up as big a gap as he possibly can, and perhaps hope that Darren will get caught behind his teammate. Looking at the gap figure, 26 seconds. That still should be enough for him to come out comfortably ahead. But Dynamite trying once again around the outside of Plevs. Plevs defending that inside line as as Dynamite. Going to try the cutback. He is able to get himself alongside, but once again gets kind of hung out around that final corner. Really struggling to go side by side into there. Not able to get the move the way he wants it. As, Darren is in the pits and back out again very early on. He pit a lap 14, so to be honest, I think that's maybe a little bit too early. He might have a tougher time getting these softs at the end of the race from that stage. Of course, it's easier to get the tyres a long distance from the in the latter half of the race than it is earlier on, simply just due to the fuel weight. There's just a little bit less stress on the tyre, but yeah, he's got a long way to go in these tyres, so he clearly felt that he was losing too much time to the guys that were pitted earlier on, and has just jumped in the pits. But I'm not sure that this is the right call from him. We'll see if he's able to make these soft tyres last well until the end of the race, because there's no point pitting earlier on and then falling off a cliff in the final 3 laps, losing everything that you've gained. But he's all over the back of Contrast here, and I think if I were Contrast, I'd probably let this one go. We'll see if he does defend to Darren, but as of right now, Darren's got a pretty big tyre advantage. Fresh softs compared to the mediums that are, not too old, but I've got a little bit of their life taken away from them. And there we go, Darren goes straight through, as Banana Josh will now pit as well, the end of lap 15, so nobody going long on the medium compound tyres, both of them opting to pit a little bit earlier than perhaps expected. And now it's just down to whether Darren can chase after Amazing Hour. 8.5 seconds, he's got 12 laps to pull it in. He's going to need some incredible pace, and he needs to maintain it, is the critical thing for him. It's all fine gaining a second lap for the first three laps of the stint, but if you then fall off, it's not worth anything. You've got to keep it up all the way through the stint. So that's Darren's challenge right now. We'll see if he is actually able to gain on Amazing Hour. Amazing Hour's pace of this race has been pretty ridiculous. So Darren's got a very tall order if he wants to have any hope of competing for the win here today. Looking a little bit further back, Dynamite still behind Plevs, who is actually catching Pete Crichton. It's just down to 1.3 seconds now, so he'll desperately be hoping he can get himself within the DRS of Pete as soon as possible. First of all, it'll make it much easier to stick with him, and secondly, it'll take a little bit of the pressure off from Dynamite behind. Obviously, having the DRS from the car in front makes it much easier to defend to the car behind. Of course, you get such a huge advantage on the straight. It's worth 3-4 tenths on that back straight alone, even without a big slipstream effect. And with the slipstream, it can be worth more than half a second. All the way along this back straight if you hook it up right, but Plebs is just not quite gaining enough. He's actually lost a little bit through those couple of corners, so we'll see if he's able to just continue closing in. That gap was 2 seconds a couple laps ago, as Jack picks up a penalty, and he's currently sitting in 11th place. Got a long way to go on his medium compound tires to make that work, as Darren picks up the fastest lap of the race. But yeah, it was a dream qualifying for Jack, but the race has not quite gone to plan. Currently sitting in 11th place, just outside of the points. Ahead of him, we've got Banana Josh in P10, who's just come out on his fresh soft, so he'll be looking at the group in front of him. I mean, Crossy, Piga, Harry Tomato, possibly if he's very quick, he might even catch up to the likes of Dynamite and Plevs on those soft compound tires. Got a lot of work to do, Banana Josh, but he's got the perfect compound to get the work done, and looking in a pretty good position for some strong points here. as Elton makes his way into the pit stop, down at 13th on a set of brand new soft compound tyres. A long way off of the points though, about half a minute away from the any possible points. So yeah, tough race for the likes of Elton and Azatak. Have lost a huge amount of time in the first half of this one, and really would have to hope for a couple of big crashes for any hope of points today. Dynamite is just hanging on to Plevs, who's not really gaining that much on Pete anymore. Pete clearly turning the engine up a little bit, and Plevs just struggling to haul in that gap. He's running very low on energy as well. Although saying that, so is Pete. He's running low on fuel too. So yeah, I did see that a bit in Australia, that Pete was, I think, under-fueled a little bit, which is quite different from what most of the drivers do. I mean, I think most of the drivers take a couple laps of extra fuel, sometimes even more than that, sometimes 3, 4, 5 laps extra fuel. But you know, this is one of those circuits where if you want to, you can underfuel quite a lot. And in particular, if you really want to look after the rear tires, this is the limiting tire on this track. Running a lot of lean through the traction zones can certainly help with that and protecting those rear tires. There's Dynamite running quite deep into turn 6. He's going to be careful he doesn't drop out of the DRS range through this middle sector to Plevs in front of him. Looking up ahead, Darren is catching Amazing Hour down to 6.2 now, but he's still got a very long way to go. He needs to keep this pace up all the way through the rest of this stint if he wants to catch Amazing Hour by the end of the race. Look a little bit further back now, because Banana Josh in his McLaren's all over the back of Crossy. I think this move is somewhat inevitable here, just 4/10ths behind. Taking a whole heap of curb though. It's all about getting a good exit and upping that engine mix, upping the energy mix as well. You can see up into overtake there. He's got quite a long way to go. You do get a lot of understeer through that long right, and he is going to close up possibly, but is he close enough to go for a dive? Not really, and not able to get the move done. Revving very high in the traction zone there. No short shifting coming from the McLaren, but he's possibly going to have a run into turn 1 now. I guess the DRS open with the slipstream, up and overtake once again, going to throw it up the inside, and there goes Banana Josh up into 9th place, possibly. Crossy's fighting it. He doesn't quite have the tyres though. He's going to try back down the inside. He is. Banana Josh leaves him the space as they go side by side to turns 3 and now 4, and who is going to come out of this ahead? Banana Josh does, just about. And yeah, Crossy pretty much got to concede that one. Banana Josh with a big tyre advantage compared to him, and you know, Crossy pretty much just got to hope. Oh, as he almost loses the car. Wheel on the curb under traction. Was pushing really hard there, and almost lost it, almost race over, but just hangs on. And yeah, that's one of those moments that if you're battling with someone and you're still kind of pushing really hard a corner or two after. And mistakes can happen there. Just about saves it though, as during that, Pete Crichton has made some kind of mistake, and Plevs is caught right up to him. He's now only 5/10ths behind, so yeah, Pete has saved. I think they both saved a little bit of URS. So yeah, likely a mistake there from Pete. He's lost quite a lot of time to contrast ahead of him too, and Plevs and Dynamite as well, all over the back of him in the battle for P4, 5, and 6. Here Tomato just starting to drop off of the back of these guys, not quite able to hang with the front running place, but he would be very happy with 7th place by the end of this. Got to be careful of Banana Josh making his way through though, as Plevs getting quite close to Pete, but not quite into turn 1. Pete with the oldest tyres out of this group. He went for that undercut, didn't really work out for him. If anything, he even kind of lost time, to be honest, compared to the likes of Contrast, but yeah, that's also going to compromise him at this stage, because he does have those older tyres, and a couple laps around this circuit can make a pretty big difference. Not just in terms of the the tyre life itself, but also in how you have to drive the car. I mean, if you do run a little bit longer in that first stint, you can push really hard in the second stint and know that you'll have plenty of life come the end of it. Now, whereas if you do go for that undercut, you just generally got to be a little bit more cautious. You've got to have that, a little bit of an eye, just a pretty consistent glance at the tyre wear just to make sure that you're not pushing things too hard. And you know, it's not always just about staying within that no puncture range either. It can come down to just trying to keep yourself below about 60% so the tires don't fall off. But Plevs is all over the back of Pete here. I don't think Pete is going to fight this one too hard. He doesn't. He might actually need to be careful. A Dynamite possibly coming up behind. He does move around quite a lot in the braking zone there. I'm not quite sure if he was going to run as the back of Plevs, possibly why he had to move over. But he is now down into 5th position, and Dynamite is all over the back of him. Is Pete going to try and actually get back up behind Plevs? No, he isn't. Not close enough. Dynamite with a bit of a better line through turn 1 into 2. Almost thinks about going for it and just backs up at the last moment. As Pete Crichton hangs on to that position, but yeah, I think these three are going to carry on battling for a while. As I was saying that, I mean, Plevs is, well, he's attempting to bolt basically and desperately get himself out of the DRS range and hope that the pair behind him battle a bit and hold each other up. A little bit further back, Banana Josh, 1.9 seconds now behind Pigga. Still got a bit of work to do there, but still will have a decent tire advantage on him, although obviously as the stint continues, that will become less and less. We're seeing that a little bit up front as well. Darren 4.6 behind Amazing Hour. Still got 7 laps to go, but his rate of catching the Sauber driver is beginning to slow a little bit. As Pete Crichton, I think, has just about lost the DRS to Plevs. Very, very close, very borderline, whether he was in it over the detection point or not. But look at how quickly Dynamite is gaining on him, and that to me says that, yeah, Pete is managing his energy down in mode 2 at the very start of that straight, which is not normally what you'd be doing. You'd be up in hot lap or overtake, or certainly the first half of that straight, typically, but he lets them go. And Plevs is actually taking this opportunity to storm away from the pair of them. And now Dynamite is, well, he's left with the challenge of reeling that Renault back in. 1.4 seconds, he needs to gain half a second on the Renault to get within that DRS, that all-important DRS. There's looking a little bit further back, we've got Pigga on the back of Harry Tomato, who's slowly been gaining on him, and is within the DRS range now. Get a whole heap of oversteer out of turn 3. These guys have got to be careful, got to be thinking of Banana Josh behind them as well. Ooh, a lot of oversteer on entry there for Pigga. I think his rear tyres are looking in a little bit of trouble already, judging just from the last couple of corners, so that might be something for Hidden to consider towards the end of this race. I mean, if these guys on the soft-medium strategy, it's, you know, it's not so much of a problem with a puncture, but it is pretty common in this game that once your tyres go above roughly 60%, that you do hit a bit of a cliff in terms of tyre performance, and you want to make sure that you're not hitting that cliff earlier than the other drivers around you, otherwise you can lose quite a lot of time. Can lose, you know, sort of 4 or 5 tenths a lap possibly off of that. But looking a little further up, Pete Crichton, no, he's not even remotely close. Dynamite looks to have incredible straight line speed compared to this Mercedes, and Pigga is not close enough to Harry Tomato either. People desperately want to hold on to this P7, especially considering most of his results last season. You know, really struggled to make his way into the points for most of the season. I was saying that he was able to finish in 7th place in Australia, so yeah, Harry Tomato looking a little bit stronger this time round, but he would be very, very happy with another 6 points on the board, I think. Pete's still on the back of Dynamite. He's not really dropping off the back of Plevs either. But yeah, it's just he's got to find something. He does have a bit more energy than the Renault driver, and the Mercedes behind him. So for Dynamite, that's a bit of an advantage he finds himself in there. He's able to use that to just about get within the DRS, and then you can save for a little while and use the slipstream of the car ahead of you to build that energy back up while the car in front is pushing, and then you can use that to overtake in the final couple of laps. Certainly seems like Dynamite is trying to do something like that. He's been in mode 2 for the whole middle sector, which is not normally what you'd see, but gets the car tucked in pretty nicely, understeering a little bit through the second half of the long right. It's really just about when you can get the power completely down. 1.2 seconds behind now. Just needs a couple more tenths to get himself in that all-important DRS, and then that battle for fourth really is on between these guys. Not quite able to get within it on this lap though. 1.3 seconds behind again. Plus looking pretty quick on the straights, and certainly through the last couple corners of the lap seems to be gaining a little bit on the cars behind. As look at that, Dynamite just struggling with the oversteer once again. Let's have a look at Piga coming through turn 3, quite close to Harry Tomato. Not close enough for any kind of move though. All these guys starting to run a little bit low on their energy. This stage of the race, obviously you want to finish the race with none, so towards the final 5 or so laps you start to look to use up what you've got, but yeah, Piga just not quite able to get close enough to Harry Tomato. You really want to be about 4 or 5 tenths behind at most come the start of the back straight to have a chance of overtaking, really. Obviously it depends on your setup as well. Banana Josh just edging close to these guys, 1.3 seconds. He really needs them to battle, I think, a little bit. He's catching them, but not quite quick enough. I think he needs to have time to possibly overtake the pair of them as well on his soft compound tyres. Dynamite not able to gain anything, actually loses a little bit to Plies on this lap, but yeah, there we go. Look, Piga, 7-8 tenths back, and you do gain a bit with the slipstream and the DRS, but it's certainly not enough to overtake. He gets a whole heap of oversteer out of the hairpin. Yeah, just needs to find that little bit more compared to Harry Tomato, who's, I think, actually gaining a little bit on Pete Crichton. They're pretty similar in pace, so yeah, considering the pace that Pete normally has, I think Harry Tomato will be very happy with that. And for Pete, it's been a bit of a disappointing race. He went for an undercut and it didn't really work out for him, and now he's just sort of languishing down in 6th place, which is not where he would want to finish. Certainly somebody that would expect to see himself up there on the podium, or at least fighting for it each week, but it hasn't quite worked out for him this time round. Considering that he was realistically kind of battling contrast earlier on, or at least quite close to him, and now he's, how far off the back of him? 10 seconds. I think he'd be a bit disappointed in that one, but if a bad weekend is P6, then that's not too bad of a weekend, to be honest. Still good points for Pete, but we would hope for a little bit more here. Of course, still plenty of time in the race. Something could happen a little bit further up, but looking towards right to the top of the field, Darren is still gaining a tiny bit on Amazing R, but it's not going to be enough. He's 4.1 seconds behind with 3 laps remaining, and yeah, it's that gap needed to come down a little bit closer, a little bit quicker, and yeah, not quite just within the margin. And you need either that or you need some big mistake from Amazing R, but for what we've seen from Amazing R so far this season, I think it's pretty unlikely that he's going to do that. They're all on with Banana Josh. You can see this pair in front of him closer and closer. He desperately needs them to battle in these final couple of laps. He needs Piga to actually pick up the pace slightly. Kind of a bit of a weird thing to hope the car in front of you starts going faster, but yeah, he needs that so that these guys start to battle. I think they're doing a better job on the traction there, though, than the last time we went around that corner. It's critical just to avoid the oversteer there, one for the tire wear itself, but also for the temperatures. And yeah, so many long curved traction zones of this circuit that setting up your car towards having good traction is really important here. It really is a kind of make or break of the setup, apart from straight line speed along that back straight. But in terms of finding pace in the car, that's really what you want to be going for. But Banana Josh just getting a little bit close to these guys now as well. He's very borderline on whether he has DRS. I think he was just outside of it there. And you can see that Piga just struggling in the dirty air behind Harry Tomato. He does obviously have his DRS, but 6 tenths back is just too far as Alton picks up a penalty, but he's kind of well, he's in his own world really in 13th at the moment. Both him, Mazatak, and Jack are just a long way away from the cars around them. The race hasn't quite worked out as they would have planned, but yeah, the penalties not making too much of a difference down there. But yeah, Piga all over the back of Harry Tomato again, but not quite close enough. He's only got 2 laps now to possibly get this move done for 7th place. Just 3/10 behind the Toro Rosso, but now coming into the middle sector, and this is the area of the track where there aren't really overtaking opportunities. Unless the car in front makes a mistake, you've not really got much of an opportunity to pass here. Just about trying to hang with them as close as you possibly can in the dirty air, and then make the most out of the slipstream along the back straight. It's all about just hitting the apexes, making sure that you don't make a mistake, and then hopefully the other car makes a slight error. You can see Harry Tomato running slightly wide through the double left there, so that might give an opportunity here for Piga. Seems a little bit closer than he was on previous laps, although in the traction zone with the dirty air really struggling, although the tail of the Toro Rosso for Harry Tomato just kicking out slightly there, and now he feels the need to go defensive because Piga is closer than he ever has been. But Harry Tomato's got some pretty good straight line speed in that Toro Rosso and is able to stay ahead, locks up a little bit in the braking zone. Piga has a slightly better line. Oh, he struggles on the traction, though, pushes slightly too hard. Not quite got the grip he would normally expect in that dirty air. As he's very close coming along the pit straight, though, and Harry Tomato will need to defend into turn 1. Surely Piga's going to try to round the outside. No, he's going to cut back on him. He's going to go underneath him. And they do go side by side through turns 1 and 2, and Harry Tomato's got a very difficult job to hang it all the way around the outside of turn 1. He's not able to do it, and Piga pulls off a beautiful move. Pretty much dummied Harry Tomato there. Made him think he was going to go around the outside, and then just eases off and throws it up the inside. Beautiful move for Piga on the final lap of the race. We'll see if Harry Tomato has anything left to fight with. They've both got a decent amount of energy, actually, to battle with each other for the rest of this lap. So, yeah, Harry Tomato got a chance possibly if he can just stick close in this middle sector to get him back. And a little bit further up the field. And Amazing Hour is making his way towards the final couple of corners. For 3 out of 3 here in Season 4. It's been a great drive from Amazing Hour. Had an amazing start and, well, stormed away. Absolutely left them for dead in the first stint. Darren had some very good pace behind, but hasn't quite been enough. And he comes home in 2nd place, but yeah, just wasn't quite able to reel in that last few seconds on that soft compound stint. As Contrast comes around for 3rd. We will go though to this battle as Harry Tomato is throwing it miles up the inside as they're going to go side by side in the final corner. Actually, as Piga got a bit of a cutback there, and they are going to go. Piga's going to try and hold it all the way around the outside. Oh, he's crashed. He spun it, and that is a horrible camera angle. One thing, but also disaster for Piga. Whereabouts is Crossy? I don't think he's going to quite get him before the line, but Piga just too much on the throttle across that curb, loses it. He was very lucky not to take Harry Tomato with him, but does cross the line, does get a couple points at least for his trouble. He'll be pretty disappointed in that one. And Harry Tomato's actually now 6th off of Dynamite, who had a couple penalties, but yeah, Piga just losing it there on the curbing and went spearing into the side of the Toro Rosso. Harry Tomato's so lucky that he wasn't spun around as well. And that promotes Banana Josh up to 8th. Will be a little probably fist pumping across the line seeing the two of them come together right in front of him, but he grabs 8th position. Might be a little bit disappointed with that considering the place he was in at the start of the soft stint. Looked like from 10th there that he might be able to get a little higher up, but you know, props to Tomato and Piga, who had very good pace. I mean, they were running, you know, pretty similar paces to some of the front runners like Pete. As we see our podium sitters here, and well, Amazing Hour with another great race. 3 out of 3 now in this season. Looked like Darren had the pace to challenge him today, but just wasn't able to make the headway he needed in the first stint needed to get clear earlier, I think, and maybe leave himself a little bit of extra time on the soft compound tires towards the end of the race. Maybe put them on a little bit later, but yeah, Amazing Hour just had such a great start, a great first stint. Was able to pull that gap, and at that point, he really was in the perfect position to win this race. Darren, obviously the lead runner of the mediums in the first stint. Strategy worked out well for him, you have to say, but who knows? He might be wondering if he'd possibly been able to clear contrast a little bit quicker and maybe left himself a little bit more life on the sauce in the end if he'd been able to catch Amazing Hour here. But I think he'd be very happy with second place overall. Contrast would be ecstatic with that third place. Struggled a little bit in the first couple races, but that's a big podium for him. Plebs in fourth after a horror start down to sixth, and makes his way back up, followed by Pete, Harry Tomato, Dynamite, Banana, Josh, Piga, and Crossy, grabbing the final point here in Shanghai. Yeah, a little bit of last lap drama there with Piga and Tomato. Just one of those things. I mean, we saw Piga struggling a little bit in the traction on previous laps. Obviously, with the at times in the dirty air, he was really struggling to get the power down. I think his rear tires are pretty much gone, and just that moment side by side, your car's completely across the curbs, and of course you're running side by side to the line. The final lap of the race, you want to get the power down as early as possible, but it caught him out, and unfortunately lost a position to Banana Josh for that. But pretty interesting race there in Shanghai. Some very good battling, some interesting tactics from some of the drivers as well. But great race for Amazing Hour, who gets a really commanding lead now in the drivers' championship, and it's going to be down to whether the drivers can pick themselves up and start taking some wins off of him. Otherwise, he's going to run away with it. But we certainly saw, at least from Darren today, that the pace is there to do that, and to win these races, just got to put it together and make sure that Amazing Hour doesn't get that early lead, and that was really what was critical for him today. He was able to get out in front and put in a couple big laps early in the stint to build himself somewhat of a gap, and was then able to just control the race from there. Almost a bit of a sort of Vettel 2013 style drive, just get a lead out in front and then just manage it, which he was able to do. But yeah, that's been the third round of the season, and if you want to catch some more racing on the AOR channel, then you can head across the Xbox stream. Those guys always have some great racing, some great shows to put on. And then later on, of course, we will have the European and American races. For the Tier 1s, we have PS4 at 7 p.m, PC at 8, and Xbox at 9. And then all of the other tiers, so F2 and downwards, will be at the standard 8 p.m. time. That is, of course, all UK time, so do whatever conversions you need to for that. And then we'll also have the PC America split on at 1 in the morning. And of course, we've got the Baku Grand Prix coming up in about 30 minutes from now. But thanks for joining me. I hope everybody has a great Sunday, and I will catch you next week for, I believe we're in Austria next week, of course, with the very short calendar due to F1 2019 coming out early. So I'll see you next week for Austria, and everyone have a good day.